If I was working a murder, I there was nothing else on my mind. All I could think about was trying to catch this guy.
Welcome to the Cops and Writers Podcast. Your host, Sergeant Patrick O'Donnell, worked the streets in one of the nation's largest police departments for over 25 years. Ride along with O'Donnell and his expert guests as they help you navigate the oftentimes confusing and misunderstood world of law enforcement. O'Donnell and his guests on this show do not represent any law enforcement agency. The content of this show is not meant to be legal advice. You think you need a lawyer? You probably do.
Hey, Cops and Writers, thanks for being here with us today for another episode of the Cops and Writers Podcast. I'm Patrick O'Donnell, and I'll be your host for today's show. This show is listener supported, so thanks to all of you who keep the show going. I would especially like to thank those of you who are patrons of the show. Your generosity helps pay for the software, equipment, and my time producing this show. Yes, you too can become a patron for less than a cup of coffee or a pint of Guinness. Just head on over to patreon.com/Cops and Writers. Welcome back, everyone, for the conclusion of my interview with former Savannah Police Homicide Detective Kevin Grogan, as we explore one of my favorite places in the world, Savannah, Georgia. Savannah is home to the Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, some of the best food ever, history, haunted houses and ghost tours, and riverboats. It also has a seedy underbelly. With Kevin as our guide, that's what we're going to talk about today. Kevin Grogan is an Army combat veteran and former Savannah Police Department homicide detective. He has worked a variety of assignments within the Savannah Police Department, including vice and multi-agency task forces. Kevin is also a screenwriter, producer, and author of the Savannah True Crime Trilogy, with his latest book, No Greater Honor, No Bigger Failure. Please enjoy the conclusion of my discussion with someone who has felt the weight of the badge and the ultimate cost it can have on someone. So, you wanted to become a homicide detective. You made it. Now, what was the testing process for a detective, or was there one?
There should be. I know there were interviews and that kind of stuff, but again, I had a very, very blessed career. And I think I interviewed to go to CID at one point, and it didn't happen because I was always on a temporary this or temporary that. And
Yeah.
then one day I got a call and they say, "Hey, man, you still want to go to homicide?" And I said, "Yep." And I was in homicide. So it was one of those
Okay.
things where if you're a doer, you get the opportunity. I
Okay.
had a lot of connections, right or wrong, uh, but the workers got rewarded. I was a worker. I got rewarded. I was given a lot of opportunities, and I always say this. I was blessed to get the opportunities I got, but when they gave me the opportunity, I kicked through the door and went to work. It wasn't
Sure.
like I took the opportunity and sat back. So,
How big of a
but
unit?
again, just
How
lucky, right?
how big of a unit was the homicide unit?
So our homicide unit was technically the violent crime unit. So aggravated assaults, domestic violence, homicide, any unnatural death or any suspicious death, which
Mm,
was pretty in Georgia's. If you're 65 and under and don't have a history of medical, it needs to be investigated. Excuse me. Um, but probably 14. So we had two teams, depending on staffing at the time, where
right.
every department has been and will continue to be understaffed. But
Right.
probably about 14 detectives, two teams working, and we would shift. Day shift, night shift, day shift, night shift,
Oh
on
wow.
call, off call.
Oh,
You
okay.
were on call for a week, off call for a week, and
Interesting.
when your team was on, you caught all the cases that came in.
Well, and that's interesting to me because they also put you in violent crime under that umbrella. Whereas, like where I work, we have people who would handle the non-fatal shootings. When I would make notifications, I was a street sergeant. It's like, is he dead or not? Well, he's swirling the drain, but
Yeah.
he's still with us. And they're like, you're not getting homicide until he's dead. And I'm like, oh,
But
okay,
that's exactly that's kind of how it worked. However, we worked the shootings from the get go. That
oh,
changed a little while after I left. They had an aggravated assault unit. We always had a separate robbery unit. But my thing is, there's pluses and minuses to that. I mean, you got to focus on the homicide. You got to focus on the big ones, and that's great if you're not distracted by everything else. But if you're not working the shootings, how do you get the intelligence of what's really going on to help you solve your murder? So it's plus and minus in both ways that it's done, and I don't think anybody's ever figured out the perfect recipe.
Right. So you become a homicide detective. You're working days and nights from, it's a rotation. Are you working
Hmm.
like 12-hour days or 10-hour days, or where are you
No,
working?
I mean, well, the schedule was
Yeah.
8 hours.
Okay.
Okay, so we were scheduled for 8 hours, but if I worked less than 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, I wasn't doing anything.
See, for us, our our detectives, and we had a full-time homicide unit, 24/7, and it was pretty big. And the way it looked for our guys was, yeah, you're scheduled 8 hours, but you never worked 8 hours. And talking to guys that did work homicide, a lot of them stayed nights. We had day shift, early shift, and night shift. They worked nights so they could go to court on overtime. And because with your
Yeah,
day
and
shift,
the thing
you're
is,
gonna spend all day in court.
yeah, no, and we mixed, we had a good mix of all that stuff. But I just remember working days at a time.
Oh yeah,
It was
I
all
mean,
kind of a blur.
if the trail is hot, you keep going until you get your guy, or the trail goes cold. And I remember talking to a detective that voluntarily left homicide, which was unheard of. And he said, you know what? I had the best car on the block. I had a super cool boat. I had the biggest, fanciest house, and I was never there to enjoy any of it. My kids don't like me. I never go and see any of their games. This is wife number two or three, blah, blah, blah. And that's stereotypically, that is the life of a homicide detective.
No, it's horrific, and that's what I was gonna say. I don't really know how to describe it in words, except in the book. So my new book, No Greater Honor, No Bigger Failure, is about my time in homicide, and it's about what you're talking about there. I didn't really even get into how terrible the schedule was, because the truth is, I didn't want to be anywhere else. Working a murder is one of the most. It's one of the most I can't think of the word.
Probably
It's one of the most
rewarding.
all-encompassing things
Hmm.
you'll ever do. You
Sure.
just want that's where you wanted to be, and I couldn't rest. I couldn't do or think of anything else. If I was working a murder, I there was nothing else on my mind. All I could think about was trying to catch this guy. And when I did get the breaks, I was drinking, I was whoring, I was, doing whatever any self-destructive behavior I could to which I didn't realize then, but I realize
Sure.
now to compensate for all the things that I was going through, and the toll that that took on my family is the fact that any of them still speak to me. I mean, my ex-wife doesn't, but the fact that my son still speaks to me or anything like that, I thank God that I was able to get through that and repair some of those relationships because it's not a natural way of life.
No, it is not.
And I don't say that to be discouraging to anybody who wants to get into it because it's the greatest job there is. There is no greater honor than working homicide. But what I didn't realize, and I'll kind of segue into this, not to run off on it, but my time in Baghdad was pretty tough. I'm in Sadr City in 2003, so there was a lot going on. They blew up the United Nations building. I was there right before it happened and almost immediately thereafter. Mahmoud al-Sadr, who was basically credited with starting the insurgency in Iraq, he was in our patrol area, so we had
Mhm.
a lot of contact with the enemy, whoever they were, and it wasn't like they were wearing uniforms, so it wasn't easy to identify. But I had a tough go of it in that tour, and when I got back, I went right into police work. Well, the police work that I went into was right in the housing projects of Savannah. Savannah is a very violent city. So the amount of shootings and that kind of stuff you see, and that's just regular police work.
Right.
I'm not crying about it. I'm not saying that I'm special or poor me, but I dove right into that. What I never did was took care of the trauma that I had witnessed and experienced. I never even thought of it. I was an old school guy of, man, I'm good. Like, even when somebody would ask me, are you sure you're okay? Yeah, I'm good. Like, what are you talking about?
Sure.
Am I okay? Of course I'm okay. I'm hard, man. I'm a super tough guy. Well, it turns out I learned towards the tail of my homicide career, I'm only human. I was nowhere near as tough as I thought I was. So the coping mechanisms that I had developed over the 10 years that I was working all these cases and everything that I involved myself in, my coping mechanisms were the most self-destructive behavior anybody could establish. My drinking was way out of control, and I already had a proclivity for that anyway. The so many things that you see in police work. It's not uncommon to my department or your department. The infidelity, the thing like that. And
Oh, yeah.
don't disagree with me, but I'm not the best looking guy you're ever going to meet. However, when you say things like, I'm on an ATF task force, I work with the feds, or I'm a homicide detective. Chicks dig that, man. I have found that I'm a former homicide detective and I've written a book. That works pretty good too, thank God. But you know, it's one of those things where you know I didn't deal and didn't know how to deal with the trauma that I had experienced, and it caught up with me. They say it usually untreated trauma catches up with people anywhere between 10 years and whatever. Well, I didn't have to wait for the whatever. It got me right about the 10-year mark.
Okay.
And it just came crashing down. My career ended in a DUI in my city vehicle. I wasn't working, but I was a drunk jackass going to refuel for the next day, and it became a huge. So that ended my career, but all of that was just from this catastrophic behavior. Had I not wrecked that day, I would have continued to succeed in my career. I probably would have been a captain somewhere or whatever position I would have risen to. But that accident would have been 10,000 times worse than the one that I actually had was.
Right.
That fall was coming, and I just never saw it. I really never did. It's one of the things that there's a chapter in the book where I tell you, you know, hindsight being 2020, I look back and like, that was the moment. But while I was there in it, I wasn't thinking anything. I was okay. I was all right. I was in control of things, and I was absolutely not in control of anything.
Wow. Now, how many years into your career did that occur?
10.
10?
It was right at the 10-year mark. So like I said, I
Okay.
got home in 2014 or 2004, and I wrecked and destroyed my career and some parts of my life in 2014.
Wow. So that happens. Did they arrest you that night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it
And
anybody
you
that
know
you
what?
knew?
Yeah, there were people present there that
That's
I
tough.
knew and knew well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a big rep at the time, so anybody who stopped there, they knew who the fuck I was, and it was a bad thing. But I put them in that position. That was all me. I've had people over the years going, "Oh my God, I can't believe they locked you up." Bullshit. I ran into the back of somebody, so instantly there's no cutting me a break. There's
Right.
no, there's no, and well, I would have found a way. No, you
No, you
wouldn't have. You
wouldn't.
have to do
No.
your job. And the
Yep.
the guys who responded, the guys and girls who responded to the incident that I created, did their job, and I will always appreciate them for doing their job. There was no, there's no hard feelings there. I was a complete idiot. I did the wrong thing. I violated my oath. I did all the things that you're not supposed to do. So I'll never hold a grudge against people that did what they were supposed to do.
What's the craziest thing you saw when you were a cop? My first week on the job, a guy running at me with a butcher knife. He just killed his brother over the last hot dog. That's chapter 1. There are 33 more. Police Stories, The Rookie Years just launched. Available now on Amazon. Search Police Stories, Patrick O'Donnell, or click the link in the show notes. Back to the show. Yeah, that was the toughest part about being a sergeant was I would have to go and arrest other cops. Obviously
That
in a
sucks.
situation like that, and every one of them was either they were piled into somebody's car on their front lawn, and I'm like, I can't make this go away. There's some cops on the scene. It's like, can you help them out, Sarge? I'm like, how?
Right.
It's on rails right now. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. And every time, except for one, the cops were just like, I'm sorry to put you in this position, Sarge. This is
No,
me.
and the thing is when we were doing it, there were certain things you could get away with. You could protect people. Way back when, that day is so done and gone with YouTube and transparency about everything. And I'm not talking about covering illegal shit. I'm
Right.
talking about trying to help people survive in their career. That's long gone. But again, it was a situation that I created. All right, so I couldn't ask anybody to try to help me and put your career on the line because I was stupid.
Exactly.
I'd never ask anybody to do that. No
Well,
way.
and people also have to realize I have cut mega breaks to civilians that I have no clue who they are, but they're just having a really bad night. And it's like I remember one guy, he was we call him pickles, drunk drivers.
Hmm.
And he's swerving all over the place. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta pull this guy over. Because where I worked, if you were just out hunting for drunk drivers, you were a coward. Because people are shooting each other. Your comrades are in the thick of things while you're gonna process a drunk driving arrest for 4 hours in a nice
Right. So
cozy
you take
little
yourself out of the street and dump everything on
exactly.
everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
Well,
frowned
the
upon.
hypocrisy of it, like,
It was
yeah, but the hypocrisy of the whole DUI thing for me, I had driven under the influence of alcohol. I always say 12,952 times. Now, the 12,952nd time was a doozy, but I got away with it so
sure.
many times. You know, it, so when I was out on patrol, the last thing I was doing was hunting DUI because it's like me writing a speeding ticket. If you've ever seen
Exactly.
the way I drive,
Yeah,
I'm not such a hypocrite that I'm going to write a speeding ticket.
absolutely. But that's one thing, and I am a fan for the most part of body cams and squad cams. They've helped cops more
Yep.
than hindered them through the years. But one thing it has done is taken away discretion. I mean, just real quick, I remember we pull a guy over, he's all over the road. Again, we don't want to take ourselves out of service. And he literally is coming from his father's funeral. Of course he goes on a bender afterwards, and he's showing us like the funeral is the mass card, and I'm like, I'm not gonna arrest this guy. So I threw his keys in the trunk, and I made sure he had a ride. If I had a body camera or a squad cam, I wouldn't be able to do that. Those days are
Yeah,
gone.
no, the discretion. I was just talking on another podcast about the power that a patrol officer in America has. You're the first line
Yep.
defense to the Constitution and all of those things. But what you also are is, so you're a public servant. So you got a guy that he broke the law. He was drinking and he drove his car. But like you said, his dad just died. He went to the funeral. You're a public servant. What's the bigger service? Locking him up and making his problem worse, or protecting him from himself and getting him out of the situation? To me, that's a no-brainer. It's a public service thing. But again, because of all this, if cops are covering everything up,
Yeah.
they lose the discretion to be able to help the general public.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I both, and just from talking to you, I mean, how many times, there would be a marijuana pipe, there'd be a little nickel bag, there'd be whatever into the sewer it would go, especially if it was a younger person. If they were decent, it's like, why am I going to screw this kid's life up? It's like, it's
If you
tough
can charge them
enough.
with the misdemeanor instead of the felony,
Yeah,
or not at all,
or not at all. Absolutely.
you know as well, if not better than I do. It all depends on the situation.
Yeah,
It depends on
absolutely.
the
But
individual.
you can't be doing that on body camera. You can't have your body camera going, it's like, oh, look, here's this little pipe. Yeah, that's not, I'll crush it
Yeah,
with my
I'm
boot. I'll do
thankful that I
whatever.
didn't have a camera.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm thankful I didn't have a camera following me everywhere. Not that I'm ashamed of anything that I ever did on the
no, no,
street,
absolutely not.
but the perception and the appearance
Yes.
of it. All right, because even a consensual use of force, like where I'm consensually handcuffing somebody, you put that on video, it can look ugly. All right, no use of force is ever going to look good on video, but the way
Never.
that gets twisted in today's society is it's disgusting, and it makes the guys and girls who are out there doing it now, it makes their job so much more difficult. And I've noticed they're not doing it as much.
No, the days of proactive policing is down big time. And the people who are going to suffer the most from that are the ones that are the most vulnerable, the most disadvantaged, the poorest in your community. They're the ones who suffer the greatest from these,
Amen. Amen.
social
I'm glad you
justice
said it because
warriors who have never been the victim of a crime, who know nothing of what the inner city is actually like, but they're the ones crying the hardest, chanting and blowing whistles and doing stupid ass shit on a regular basis. It just drives me banana cakes. Yeah, it's like you have no clue. When
no,
when I became a sergeant, I was forced to go to community meetings when I hit day shift. I worked nights for 17 years. There was no community meetings, from midnight to 8 or 7 p.m. to, whatever. So,
right.
one thing that I discovered, you're going into the worst neighborhoods in the city, i.e., the country. You never heard one time somebody saying, God, I wish there was less cops. The people who live there,
Yeah.
they wanted a cop on their front lawn 24/7. That's what they wanted.
Yep.
It's just,
No, in those.
oh,
No, you're preaching to the choir, and I'm so glad because I've been beating that drum for years. The thing is, the people who complain the most, they're taking away the tools that help police protect the people that need it the most.
yes.
And as soon as you take those tools away, it all falls apart. And I think, like I said, I started writing about it 9 years ago, and unfortunately, what I warned people about 9 years ago, a lot of the things we're talking about right now, are coming to fruition now.
Yeah.
The thing is that the experienced police officers that knew how to fight the fight, they're all gone. They've been run off because they've been fired. The worst thing that could happen to me, uh, back in my day, I hate to be the old guy to say that, but back in my day, all I had to worry about was getting killed. All right, and I prepared myself to not let that happen. Now these guys go out there and they got to worry about being indicted and going to prison
Yeah.
for doing their job.
Yeah,
That's I can't imagine working under that kind of pressure.
they're one bad YouTube video away, and it's all about optics. Everything is optics and not what actually is
Perception.
going on. Yes, yeah, and those are two
No, 100%.
totally different things. But when you were in homicide, let's back up just a little bit. What were your clearance rates in when you were
We,
doing
you know,
homicide?
we were always above the national average. I think the national average is like 80 or 70 something percent. We were always above that.
Mm,
I think one year when I was there, we were 96%.
wow, that's
Uh,
good.
it, yeah, no, we're some pretty good stuff, but you know how that goes.
Oh yeah,
It's up and down. One year it's real good, the next year it's real. But to me, the homicide rate is not. I don't know why that's used as the gauge of an effective police department, because I mean that's so. Sometimes you got it, sometimes you don't. You could be doing the best work ever and still not solve the case because for whatever reason. So that to me is not the rate of what's going on in the city. What I gauge violent crime in the city and how safe a city is are non-domestic aggravated assaults with guns. So shootings. That's what I look at because our murder rate, if it weren't for the Trauma One Center that we had here in Savannah, it would be 100 a year. But thank God, the Trauma Center in Savannah at Memorial Health is so proficient. Our murder rate is usually around between 35 and 40,
yeah. You
which
know,
is still,
same.
in some cities that's like, oh, those are nothing. That's a day in Chicago,
Yeah,
but in Savannah that's a big deal.
yeah. And the thing about it too is, from the paramedics that are going to work on you in the field to the trauma surgeons at a level one trauma center, your chances are a lot better now than they were 20 years ago with the same
Hell
injury
yeah,
and the invention of quick clot that has saved so many lives. Just
yep,
these types of things help immensely. But the one thing about the murder rate, that's one thing they can't cook the books as much as they try. Yeah, because I mean, I've gone through, and it's all
Oh, believe me,
cyclical.
they try.
Oh, they do. I mean, I
I'm,
I had a guy, he was a
yeah,
homeless dude that got into a bum fight with another homeless dude. Homeless dude crushes his skull with a rock and sets him on
allegedly.
fire after he's done.
Ooh,
This guy was charcoaled.
ooh.
And the captain from Homicide comes and he's like, and the lieutenant's there, I mean, it's a big production because it's next to a hospital. It's under a bridge next to a hospital. So in a pretty
Good
decent
God.
neighborhood. So yeah, that drew a lot of attention. It was in the middle of the day. And
Yeah, I just the ethics of that is how could you go to a scene like that and even imply, well, that's accidental.
well,
Bullshit.
dude, we had this captain, he comes up and he said, we would pull an M number, a murder number for a homicide. The stats were a little
Yeah.
bit different, the way they took care of them. And he said, he looked at the lieutenant, he's like, I'm going to get an arson investigator out here. He said, you know what? Maybe he, like self imploded or spontaneous combustion. And
Spontaneously
everybody
combusted.
started laughing. It's like, is this Spinal Tap? Is he the drummer for Spinal Tap? And I'm just
Yeah.
like, are you kidding me? Then finally, the lieutenant just takes him off to the side. He said, sir, I'm pulling a number. His head is caved in. That he didn't do that to himself, and he didn't set himself on fire afterwards.
I'm
Let's do
I'm
some
thankful
things.
that I never got to the part in my career where I became such an administrator or politician where I had to think, well, how is this statistic going to affect
Yep,
my job? I
that's
I didn't get to that level of police work, thank God, because I never wanted to think about it. I was blessed to only worry about right and wrong.
so. When you were on the job, if you were chief, what like one or two things would you have done differently?
In our department,
Yeah,
I would have what needs to be done, and what I would do is shield my department from our politicians. Politics have no place in law enforcement, as you well know. And I would take the brunt of whatever City Hall had to do. I, I would nod my head, try to do the little things, but I would make sure that my officers knew I supported them, and I would encourage them to go out, be proactive, and keep our city safe. I don't think that happens in American cities anymore.
no,
I
I
think
don't think
everybody's
so.
so worried about
There's
the optics, the image, and that.
very few chiefs or sheriffs have that attitude where it's like, you know what? Yeah, I'll take care of the politics because once you hit chief or sheriff, you're a politician. You're not a cop anymore. You're a politician
Yep.
all day
Just
long.
by the nature of it, that's exactly
Yeah,
right. Yep.
that's the nature of the beast. And you could see the good ones and the bad ones where it's like, yeah, I'll fall on that sword. Yeah, I'll take the heat. I'm a big boy. I can do. Or
Right.
they'll
I got
roll
I got big
over.
shoulders.
Yeah, or they'll roll over and it's like, okay, who's the newest kid here? Yeah, you're fired. Look, I did
Well,
something. Look
now,
at me. I did something.
yeah, no, and now they let it fall on, like, who can we hang this on?
Yep.
And that's usually the lowest level. And I've seen that happen a few times since I left the department. I've seen people get hung out to dry for not doing anything. They just took the heat, instead of a chief stepping up and saying, "Ah, you're not doing that to my people."
Right.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Or
And the
very
the worst part now is the people who have never done what I consider the job. They're the ones who've been promoted. In
yeah.
Savannah, we have a couple guys who were super real police, but now they're in a position where they're just trying to hang on, keep the peace so they can get their pension and get out of this rat race of what this job has become,
Mm,
unfortunately.
yeah, that's tough. Now, was there a case in your career that kind of stuck in your craw for a long time or is still there?
Yeah, all of them. And
Okay.
I mean, if you've ever been around homicide scenes, they
Oh
they all
yes.
stick with you. I can tell you all. I can tell you all of their names. I can remember every image and injury that was going. But I write about it in the book. There's one. I I had five primary. All right, I've worked hundreds of murder scenes, but
Sure.
was assigned five primary. I solved the first four, or, well, four of the five. The fifth one, I solved it. I know who did it, but I wasn't able to put the charge on him. Uh, and that guy wound up going out and killing two more people
Mm,
because I was ineffective in catching him. So I wasn't good enough to make the case. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It's just I was so fucked up at the time that I didn't get it. So then I get in trouble and I leave the department, and he goes on to kill two more people. So I got to live with that for the rest of my life. And that's why, the title of the book is No Bigger Failure. That case is the no bigger failure. So
Mm,
I got to live with that. Thankfully, my buddy Rob Santoro, who's up in Minnesota now, he was able to get him on the other two and
okay.
got a plea to the case that was mine. So it is closed, but there were two other guys involved too. But nobody's ever going to go back and look at that because the case is closed.
Sure.
But it's something that's going to stick with me and stay with me forever. I mean,
Yeah.
I know when I close my eyes the last time, that thought's going to go through my head.
So, we alluded to this previously, and you were very open about how your career ended, and I appreciate that. Not everybody would be that forthcoming with that type of thing. You get arrested, you go through a legal thing. What happened next? I mean, how do you recover from that? Where does your life take you?
Well, let me tell you. So my DUI that I absolutely did. Guilty is sin, and I never denied it. Now, of course, I hired an attorney and I was trying to get it reduced to reckless so I
Sure.
could go back to work, even if it wasn't for the department that I was working on. I could have salvaged my career, but then I got caught into a whirlwind of politics.
Mm.
Our district attorney was really trying to make a name. I wound up going to a trial. The trial turned into something that movies are made of. An assistant district attorney got up on the stand and lied,
Oh.
saying that I had refused to testify in a case, and as a result, that a murderer was able to walk free, which is
Uh,
absolutely not true. It was just horrific.
yeah.
But it took 2 years, 7 months, and 13 days, not that I was counting, to get to trial. So for 2 years, I was struggling to make any money because they had indicted me on some trumped up political charges. So it wasn't just the DUI, but they went on to charge me with felonies.
Mm.
So unadjudicated felonies, when you get a background check running, nobody's going to hire you.
Right.
They're like, well, let us know when that's over and we'll talk to you then.
Uh,
So, my law enforcement career was over and then some. Uh, but during that time, uh, I had some very good friends. I learned a couple different trades to make money, but I started writing. And right after my trial, and I was acquitted of the bullshit um, political charges, I released my first book. That was 9 years ago in May. Uh, so, this is the third in the trilogy. I've been able to go speak to a lot of groups. I do private investigations for defense attorneys. So I've been working on both sides because I've been on both sides of
sure.
the legal system, both the angle of locking people up and the angle of being screwed. So I can relate to a lot of things that I couldn't relate to if I didn't have the experiences that I've had. And that has been a blessing in itself because, I used to try to keep people safe by locking bad guys up. Now I go to the bad guys and try to keep them from getting locked up or doing things. I try to encourage anything to get them out of the behaviors that they're doing, which is, believe me, it's eye opening. It's not something I ever thought I would be doing, but I'm thankful every day that I get the opportunity to try and make a difference that way.
Now, did you join AA or any other type of support group? I mean, that's a lot of stuff that happened to you.
It's a lot of stuff that happened to me. Again, the DUI, I absolutely did. Okay, the political craziness that came after it, that was complete horseshit brought
Right.
on by outside sources. But I opened the door for it. So if I hadn't been stupid to begin with, they never would have been able to kick that door open and come at me that way. So again, I accept full responsibility for that. But immediately after my accident, I got into the program. I went to AA. I went to rehab. And then you couldn't tell me I had a drinking problem. I had no problem drinking at all. It was not a problem for me. I could drink anytime I wanted to. But I do remember the second day being at rehab. They drew this thing on a whiteboard. It was a dry erase board. They just drew this bubble of three different types of alcoholics, and the guy just drew my life on a on
Wow.
a board in front of me. I was like, holy shit, maybe I do have a problem.
Yeah.
So I quit drinking for about 8 years, probably longer than that, maybe 8.5. Um, just because I'm a moron. I drink again, nowhere near to the level that I used to. Uh, I try to monitor it, but I'm your typical alcoholic. I'm like, I got control of this. I'm trying to prevent that from ever bringing my life crashing down again. But
Yeah.
it, it's a struggle, and my dog's struggling at the moment,
That's all right.
barking at me, but he he's a Georgia Bulldog, came down here. And by the way, here's a quick little plug. Coolest thing ever. Got a buddy who's a cop in New Britain, Connecticut. All right, and he's now the animal control officer. All right, he runs a no-kill shelter, and he adopts the dogs out. So he's got this great Facebook page where it's all positive things. So the pound is not the pound; it's a hotel. The animals are not rejects; they're guests at the hotel,
Okay.
and he gets them adopted out. So the coolest thing ever is a charity called Paws for or Pilots for Paws.
Pilots
They
for
took
pause.
this bulldog who's from Connecticut. They flew him to Virginia. Another private pilot flew from Michigan to Virginia, picked up the dog, flew him to Georgia for me to pick him up. So a Connecticut bulldog became a Georgia bulldog, which is like royalty down here. All right, go dogs, sick 'em. It's a great thing, and that's a side note. But I had to plug that
Oh yeah.
charity because they're phenomenal. If anybody knows anything about Pilots for Paws, check them out, or the New Britain Animal Shelter. Donate because they just do great things. They take care of animals, and I'm a dog guy. So
Me too.
sorry for the sidetrack, but I had
That's
to do that.
okay. No problem with that. So let's talk about your writing. Your latest book, No Greater Honor, No Bigger Failure, Savannah True Crime Trilogy. That's the third book in the trilogy. That's a great title. I mean, did you know right away? It's like, yeah, this is the title of this book. It's got to be.
No, no, I didn't. Not on this one.
Okay.
This one was it was Dome Rocker for years. So I've been writing this book for 10 years. My first two books were a lot of fun. Great cop stories,
Yeah.
very cathartic. I'm telling you all the stuff on the street. So anybody who is interested in police work, you read those first two books and you're like, hell yeah, because there's foot chases, car pursuits, all the fun stuff you see in
Yeah.
this one is murder, and there was nothing good about it. Anytime I would take my brain back to uh, those things, I realized just how sad and hopeless. Because you know what, I solved some murders, but you know what, I never brought anybody back to life. So
Right.
I never felt like I ever fixed anything. And the whole reason I became a cop was to try to save the world. And I think all of us that did that learned real early, you're not going to save the world.
Yep.
Uh, but I was going to call it dome rocker for the colloquialism of a shot to the head, but also I was going to. There's always a little city politics mixed into my books, so we call City Hall the Dome. So I was going to rock the dome a little bit.
Okay.
But then one day I was looking. Uh, it, First of all, nobody associated dome rocker with a gunshot to the head, so I'm like, all right, I got to think a little more mass on that. But the homicide investigator's creed, there is no greater than honor than to be able to basically speak for the dead.
Right.
Uh, you know, to be the signed the investigation of somebody who's been killed and be their voice. There is no greater honor than that. The only argument that I kind of have in my own head is service to our country. But the no bigger failure is the case that I talked about. But it's also there's no greater honor than serving your city in a government capacity to try to bring your city forward. And the city of Savannah government is failing at that. So
Mm.
they've been voted into a position where there is a lot of honor in it. and they're failing miserably at it. Just my other side note, but that's where the title comes from.
Gotcha. Now, what do you want people to get out of this book when they're done reading it?
So two things.
Okay.
The first one is for all the true crime enthusiasts and anybody who watches cop shows and stuff like that. These books tell you what it really is. I mean, if you haven't realized yet, I'm a very straightforward person. I write the same way I'm talking to you. So I put it out there. So if you ever want a really accurate depiction of the way things go, at least from my point of view, it's in there. It's very straightforward. And I want somebody who's never been in a police car to feel what it's like. I want retired guys who've been out of it for a long time to read it and feel like they're back in the car doing it. The other side of that, and the more important thing that I want people to get from my writing, is look at me, look at my career, and use it as a precautionary tale of what not to do. Okay, you can have great success and do great things in police work, but if you're not taking care of yourself, you will fail. Okay, and there's just no other way. Don't make the mistakes that I made. Read the books so you can learn my suggestions on how to take care of yourself, because one of the things they ask you in a hiring interview is they give you a scenario. Okay, you're on your way to a hot call. What's the most important thing to do? The most important thing to do when there's an officer down across the city is get there safely. If that means going 10 miles an hour and arriving as opposed to wrecking on your way, get do the 10 miles an hour. Take care of yourself on the way. And that's one thing I didn't. I wrecked going to that hot call. I drew resources away from the people that really needed it. I failed in my mission to accomplish the goal. And I don't want any, I know it's going to happen to other people, but if reading my books can keep somebody from making the mistakes that I made, then that's a huge success to me.
All right. Well, let's talk about marketing real quick. That's the one thing authors dread. It's like public speaking or going to the dentist. It's no fun. But where do you get the best bang for your buck for marketing with your books?
My thing is like I sell them the most on Amazon,
Right.
but I've been blessed. I mean, absolutely blessed. So I wrote my first book, and I thought I was going to give 50 of them away. I wrote the story of my boys, the guys to the left and right of me, and I thought I was going to give 50 of them away, and that was going to be that. I sold thousands of my first book in the first month. It was unbelievable. It exploded, and it was just timing. Enough news stories. It got a lot of attention, which was great for me. So I've been able to capitalize on that alone.
Yeah.
People loved it. It's got great ratings on Amazon. I've been able to get into podcasts and get on shows like yours. Gentlemen like you give me the opportunity to come talk about them. So that has worked very well. I have great relationships with local bookstores, so I do a bunch of signings.
Sure.
And again, the Savannah True Crime Trilogy. You walk in, that hooks you. Like people, I was at Nine Line Apparel
Oh yeah.
last weekend, and half of the to launch this new book. So half the people there had bought their books on Amazon, and they were my buddies, and I signed their books, and that was cool. But the other half were people that were at Black Rifle Coffee and come into Nine
Mm.
Line, and as soon as they saw Savannah True Crime Trilogy, they came to buy them. So I've been blessed. It's a good hook. It's a genre that people are obviously very interested in, and I have the coolest titles and covers in the world.
You do that. Yeah. The titles are awesome and your covers are very, very striking. I gotta say. And again, for somebody who loves Savannah like me, I was just like, oh yeah, that takes me back. Yeah, I absolutely love them. So, what's your advice? Let's start landing the plane. Let's finish this up. What's your advice to somebody who's considering a career in law enforcement?
Take care of yourself. First of all, thank you. Anybody who has a call to service, my hat's off to you. Especially in today's day and age, people going into law enforcement now, knowing the amount of scrutiny that they're going to be under, because I'm sure they see the news. If they still fill out that application, go through the whole application process, they sign up for it knowing that they're going to be under the scrutiny of that, I have nothing but respect for the men and women that are out there doing it today. To the people who have been doing it for a while, thank you for still showing up to do it. But my advice will always be, one, remember, integrity counts more than anything. If you compromise your integrity one time, it's over. All right. And again, with the perception of law enforcement and mass media today, it only takes one screw up to ruin your department's connection to their community. All right. In order to be effective in law enforcement, your community has to trust you. They have to know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So if you say you're going to get the bad guy, then go get him. Don't make promises you're not going to keep. That's one that I try to make sure people understand, and you gotta understand it. And excuse my language, but there's no better way to say it than don't be an asshole. Treat people the way you would want somebody to treat your grandmother. That was always my philosophy.
Yeah.
On how to operate, and it served me well my entire career. Every success that I had is directly related to the way that I spoke to people and the way I treated people. I didn't like everybody, but I was respectful to everybody when they deserved it. You'll see the times in your career. There are some people that don't deserve respect, but in general, treat everybody fair. Just be honest about what you're doing, and do not chase headlines. Do not make a case to because you think it's going to be big. Make it because it's the right case, and do it the right way.
Good words. Good words. So what's next for you?
Hopefully films.
Films.
Hopefully
Okay.
films. I've been trying to break the movie world for quite some time now. I've gone from writing books and nonfiction books to screenwriting.
Oh,
I've been
okay.
doing that for a couple of years. So uh, I have two screenplays that are written and one for a short film that's hopefully going to serve as a proof of concept. But
Mm.
again, being in Savannah, I have a lot of connections. It's a matter of funding. So here's my sales pitch. You want to talk about marketing? This is why Kevin Grogan will never be in sales, because I said I was a bullshitter as a kid. I'm still pretty good with the spin and yarn, but I will tell you this: the worst investment that you can make as a for a return on investment is a film. It's a terrible investment. So with that in mind, if you want to invest in my film, give me a call.
All right. So where can
That's it. It's amazing that nobody's invested yet.
yeah, weird. All right, let's finish this up. Where can people go to find more about you and your books?
Go to Amazon for the books, or if you come to the city of Savannah, right now exclusively the Book Lady bookstore on historic Liberty Street in Savannah. They have a table for me for the Savannah True Crime Trilogy. But if you want to know anything about me, you just Google me. I've been on tons of podcasts. Hope to do many more. If people like you, Sarge, give me the opportunity to do so. I've had the great privilege of rubbing elbows with Hall of Fame members of the law enforcement community, guys like Jay Dobbins and Steve Murphy.
Oh yeah, love Steve.
Just on Game of Crimes.
Yep.
He's what a great, what a humble guy. I mean, I ca- any cop story you go, Murph can just sit there at the end and he's like, "Oh yeah, I caught Pablo Escobar."
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of ends
Exactly.
the conversation right there. There's
Yeah.
no there's no more measuring contest after that.
No, no. Yeah, Steve has become a real good friend of mine. I was just talking to him on the phone yesterday, actually. So yeah, just
He's a
salt of the
great
earth.
human being. On
Yes.
top of being what a professional, what a career. On top of that, he's a fantastic human being.
He is. That he is. So the name of the book is No Greater Honor, No Bigger Failure. Kevin Grogan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it greatly.
Thanks everyone for joining me and former Savannah Police Department homicide detective Kevin Grogan for the conclusion of our interview. Thank you, Kevin, for your honesty and frankness during this conversation. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Cops and Writers podcast. If you haven't done so yet, could you take a minute and rate and review the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? If you have already, thank you. As always, thank you for all of your support, and, of course, let's be careful out there.